All right, so continuing where we've been doing for the past couple of weeks with creating the slideshow gallery, we're going to start working with, or at least go over, the basic image loader class. The basic image loader class is a reusable class, just like when we created our XML data class is a reusable class. If we go to our main document, we see here that we're instantiating the basic image loader class. Unlike the XML data class that we instantiate up here, it's not requiring any parameters for it to be passed. Okay, so we're gonna instantiate a basic image loader class, right? So of course we want to use it, so we want to import it, right? We want to create a variable for it. We want to instantiate it, and then we're gonna start using it. Okay, so the first thing is we instantiate it. Okay, no surprise there, we've been doing that forever. The next thing is inside the image loader class, right? I have an event. We're gonna listen for a image loaded event. Let's go there. Image loaded. Here is my constant. Okay, what's happening is when we call the public function called load image and we pass it whatever image URL we want it to load, right? We're gonna go and we're gonna listen to the progress event. The progress event, mainly all it does is gives you the progress of the loaded content. So it gives you the percentage, or you can calculate the percentage based on the bytes loaded and the bytes total of the actual image that you're loading. So if your image is 100K, then here in our image loading function, we can create a progress bar or a percentage, and we could do the calculation there. We have a tutorial actually on preloaders, so that's why that's not there. All right. Next thing I'm doing is I have an event listener, and I'm waiting for that image to be completed. I'm waiting for when it's 100% completed. It's going to dispatch this event once it's complete. It's going to go into the image loaded function, and then I'm going to put it inside a bitmap. Now I created a bitmap on the fly, right? I said give me the target that's just been loaded, its content, and make it a bitmap instead of raw data. So I wanted to look at it instead of like a vector or a movie clip. I want it to be a actual bitmap. Then I have here an image array that I've created, and I'm putting into the array that image. We got it so far? Okay. Then I'm dispatching the event that says image loaded. So boom, it's completed. Create the bitmap, put it into the array, dispatch, it's been loaded. My main class is listening in the basic image loader class for when that image loaded event has been dispatched, and then it runs that function called load image. We good? Cool. Immediately here, I'm calling the public function called load image inside this class, right? If we look at the load image function, what am I passing to it, right? It's expecting some sort of a URL, right? I'm going into the XML. We all remember this part, right? We're going into the XML and giving it the first image. I want you to load the first image. Okay? Now, something important that we have to notice here is here I added the listener before I loaded the image. If you do the load image first and add the listener later, it will not function as intended. You have to first listen for the stuff to happen before you make something happen.
What does the at source mean? Or does this mean at the source?
No, this is the attribute. This is how you get an attribute. Okay, so in our XML, right, we have an attribute called source. You see? And then that's how it knows which one to load.
Okay.
That's what that is. That's how you get the attribute. as built into Flash. All right, so important, you listen for whatever you want and then you call whatever function or method you need. So I'm loading the first one in the XML list, image 0. So what happens? It says, okay, load the image inside that class. I'm gonna go create the loader, get the request. We're not doing the progress right now. The complete event, image, push it into the array, dispatch the event. Okay, I'm already listening for that. Load image. Okay. Too fast? We good? All right.
Yeah.
Then we're adding it
Can I ask
to.
something?
Sure.
Okay, so
Go up.
yeah, no, because you said you listen first, then you load, right?
Yes, we listen first and then we load.
But you're listening, but at the same time listening and telling it go load.
Yes.
But right below it you have this is where it's at. Is that how it is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so once that event has been dispatched from the basic image loader class, it's going to run this function. The load image function does a couple of things. It runs this function here called add image to stage, and basically that's what it does. It adds the image to the stage. I already have a movie clip called image container, right? We've worked that before. It's just a container. We're adding the child, right, from the image loader, right? We know what the image loader is, right, from that class. You see it here, right? It's saying get that image and whatever the count is. So let's break that down. This section here, right? Inside that image loader class, I have another function called getImage. Let's go to there. Okay. Remember that here, we're pushing it as it completes that image, we're pushing it into the array. Every time it completes one, it puts it in the array. Completes another one, puts it in the array, all right? Cool. But we're not doing anything with that array. So this is automatically doing it every time it completes. Every time it completes, it's automatically doing it. Okay. The getImage function is expecting an index number. We all know what an index number is from an array, right? All right, cool. The return value is a bitmap. So remember here, we created the bitmap. It's pushed the bitmap into the array. So the return value is a bitmap. This is where we haven't done much of this. When I call this function and I pass it that index number, right? It's gonna return. It's gonna give me back from the image array whatever index number I've passed it. That's what this function does. This function does all that for me with that little thing. Let me get rid of the trace for a second. Okay? When you have a function with a return value, right? Whether it's a number, a string, or whatever, in this case it's a bitmap, I want it to return back, give me back, right? It's supposed to return back a bitmap, right? All you do is put the keyword called return and then whatever it is. In this case is a bitmap, and it's going to return a bitmap because that's what I put into the array. So when I give it that number, it's going to say, okay, from the image array that I've been creating, give me whatever index was passed. Okay, so here it is, image loader get image count, right? So that's the function. And count, what is count? We've been using count before. It's just a numerical stepper, so it's just something that counts up every time. In this case, count starts at 0. We've worked with that before, right? Excuse me. So the first time I'm telling it load the image, here it is, image 0, right? So it's going to run all of this, image loaded, right? So once it does this part here, the basic image loader says, okay, image loaded, dump it into the array, dispatch the event. Okay, so that means that that's going to be the first one in the array because that's the first one we send it to. So when we go here and we say add that child, get image count, count is 0. So it's gonna load the first one and add it to the display list. Okay? Then it's gonna take them, it has my image container that gonna hold my images and place it on the stage wherever I want it, right? I'm telling it to take the alpha property of that image and set it to 0. So every time you say get image, it's gonna return back, right? It's gonna give you back that image, that bitmap. All right? And I'm setting the alpha to 0. That's what it's doing. That's what add image to stage does. Let's stop there. Any questions? Confused about anything?
That stage width, is it times 2? Or what is
That's divided by.
Oh, divided by?
Mm-hmm. So we worked with that little calculation before, right? We're just taking the stages width, dividing it by 2, puts it in the middle. And then whatever the container is width and divided by 2 as well, because everything puts it at the 0, 0 mark, right? The top left hand corner, whenever you load anything, top left hand corner. You know, it's not in the center registration point, it's in the top left. So then we divide that and bring it back. Any questions about this part here? Do you want me to go over that part again?
Yeah, that is familiar.
That's good?
Yeah.
And you understand how this is working, right? Excuse me. This part is working with the basic image loader, and this part is working. Do we understand the get image function? Yes? Right? All it's doing is giving me back whatever return value. In this case, it's just a bitmap. All right, cool. So that's what it's doing. Once it does that, now it increments my count. So now instead of 0, it becomes 1. Right? And then we know this: if count is not equal to total images, then go ahead and load the next one. So if it's not the total, go ahead and call the next one. Right? So call the load image function, pass it the next one, whatever count is, and source. And it does it again. Does the whole sequence again.
So that's why when you reference the source right there, that's why you have the source as a string, so it could go through and it could be reusable and whatnot, right? Or no?
Well, no. The source is, this is just a name that I gave it in the XML.
Oh, okay. Because when I saw that, I'm thinking about that source that you had before, where you were passing.
Yeah,
strings
because I
to it,
wanted
and
to
then it
make
was-
sense together, linked together.
But are they the same thing or no?
No, I mean this here, the inside this load image function here that I told it source. Where is it? Right here. No, it's a URL actually. It's not a source.
No, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about when you were passing a string to the source, and then on the main you had the path to where your images were.
I'm not following you. Anybody understand what you're saying?
Yeah, it was that part that you were asking about before when we were reviewing. Is that it?
Yeah, when we were reviewing.
We were reviewing the image loader, not the image loader, the XML loader.
The data loader, wasn't
Data
it?
loader.
Well, we already
I just
went
wanted
through
to know if it was all
that.
the same.
We
If that
already.
source is the same thing.
No. This source is, we're going into our XML's data, images, right? Into the images, and then image. So if we go here, we're going into images.
I thought that's what we were doing before. So I'm saying, my point is I don't see why you have to do it again.
No, we're not loading them. We're not loading the XML. We're not loading XML. We're loading image. We're using the basic image loader class. We're not we've already loaded the XML. We've already got all the data. Now we're using it.
I'm gonna
So-
have to go back in the video then.
Yeah.
Don't
So.
worry. Keep
Because
going.
before when we were reviewing, there was this little section that you said, what does this do?
Mhm.
And it had
I guess.
the word source. And I
No, it's
said,
like, you know,
it's
like
looking in the
connecting what
XML
you say.
to get the image.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, this is passing.
Right.
So
Okay.
Because it was the same word that was
So
confusing.
right. So let's pause
I
for.
get it, but I just think it's.
Let's pause for a second.
Doesn't make sense. Like, why you gotta read it and then load it? Why can't you just load it? But yeah, I get it.
Because how you don't have the information.
Yeah.
You don't have the data. So how, what is it you're gonna load? If you didn't do that, then here every single time, there's just no way for you to do it, because you would have to create your array. I guess you could create an array and type in all your paths and your images in an array, whatever, and then I guess send it here. But we don't want to do that, right? The first thing we did here was load the data, right? When we loaded the data,
numbers and stuff like that, or what is it reading?
Huh?
Like, you know, like the actual image that you're trying to, like that data that you're trying to load, is it numbers, or what is it trying to read when you're trying to?
Okay, when we're loading the data, remember, when we loaded all this, we're going to go over it right now. When we loaded the data and we did all of this and it did events complete, dispatch the data loaded event, right? When it went into function, it stored it in a variable called data. I could have called this whatever. You know what I mean? It stored it there in that variable. So it's already loaded the data and stored it and has it there, right? That's what the XML data did. That's all it did. Don't confuse the basic image loader class with the XML data. They're two different classes. They do two different things, okay? Because I named this one source, it's because it's expecting a source, some sort of a source, right? It's expecting that.
Yes.
Right, but that's the XML data. It's expecting a string.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I was talking about.
But it's loading, it's a URL loader. Okay, the basic image loader uses just a loader, not a URL loader. Don't confuse them. This one is to load.
But in your constructor, you're passing it a URL.
In the XML data, in the XML.
No. In your basic image loader, right there, public function load image URL.
That's not my constructor. My constructor's up here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
My constructor's up here. There was just no need to add all the space and everything. I'm not doing anything with the constructor, right?
True.
So what I did here is essentially is the reason why I did that is because here you can instantiate this and have this ready, all set up somewhere. Let's just say in this case here, and whenever you want to use it and whenever you need to pass it something, then all you have to do is call this load image function. That's why the constructor is that way, because I don't want it to do nothing, but the class is ready, right? Because as soon as you instantiate it, it automatically runs the constructor.
Yeah.
So this is a public function called load image, and it's expecting a URL, right? When we're gonna call this XML data is already stored here. You see, so that's the data that you're going to use, that you're going to pass to the basic image loader.
Okay. I got it.
Anybody not understanding that? That's really important to understand. There are two different things they're doing. One is you're getting the data and you're storing it for use later. Then you're going into that class and you're picking up the data and then you're passing it to the image loader.
All right, makes more sense.
All right, so then we're counting up, and then it says if the count is not equal to total images, right, then load the next one. And this is exactly the same as this here, right? Except here it has count because it's using the variable count. So
but that function, the load image function, that has to be connected to a mouse event, right? To load the next one.
No, because remember we're kind of doing a loop here, right? Between function, right? So it's saying.
So this is just loading images. You're loading.
Loading.
You're not putting them on the stage yet.
Well, it is putting them on the stage.
Yeah, when you go to
right here,
it's what you see first.
I'm sorry.
Isn't it like once you you just open up the website and that's what you see first? That's your first.
Well, we see that first because we're passing it the first one here.
Yeah, right.
That's what we see first.
Yeah,
so once this image is loaded, right? Remember the image loader class, right? Says, okay, boom, this one's loaded. Okay, it's loaded. Then add it to the stage. It's gonna come here and it's gonna do this and from this stuff here, right? Boom, it put it on the stage. Okay, it's gonna count up. It's gonna run your conditional statement, and then run and put up the next one.
My question is, when does it count up? Like there's
right here.
Nothing that's happening.
Yes, it is. It's right there.
No, I see it there, but it's like you haven't clicked anything.
It's doing it by itself.
It's doing it by itself because we're dispatching events. We're listening and dispatching events, right? So let's walk through this again. It is listening. Remember, I haven't removed the event listener.
Right.
Right? So it's going to continue to listen for that, continue to listen for that.
It's loading images on the stage. It's loading the first, the second, the third. But you, like when you open the thing, you just see the first one.
Right.
And it doesn't do anything until I click the next.
Right, but we haven't gotten up to the next and previous function.
Right.
So right now it's just kind of just like it opens.
It's
the first
right
one,
now it's
then it
loading
brings-
them, putting them all at 0, or loading them, putting them all
Also,
at
you're
0,
gonna have
putting them
images
all,
behind it. You're not gonna see it.
putting them all at 0. That's all it's doing. Remember, the added to stage, it's gonna take whatever image is loaded, right? Put them into the image container, and
Alpha 0.
alpha them out to 0. So it's gonna come here. It's gonna load it, right? It's gonna the basic image loader is gonna dispatch this event, right? It's gonna run here, add the next one, add the count. Is this true? No. Okay, go to the next one. Oh, image loaded. Go back here, do this again, add the next one, increment the count. Boom, it's gonna do that over and over and over and over and over and over. That's what it's gonna do, right? Until this statement becomes true, right? Once it becomes true, right, then I put count back to 0 because I want to use that variable again, right? And then I'm gonna tween light. Then I'm gonna alpha in the first one. This is why I set it to 0, because now I want the first one to alpha to 1. Now remember, see, I'm reusing the same class over and over. So if I wanted any image in that image array that I created in the basic image loader class, I just pass it any number I want. It's going to give me that image back.
Is that first one the time for it to fade in?
This one, yes. So we haven't worked with tween light. Some of you are familiar with it, some of you are not. We haven't worked with that yet. Hopefully we'll start working with that on Friday. But I want to try to get through this little exercise. So tween light says, whatever object it is, how many seconds, and then any properties that you want. In this case, I want the alpha, and I bring it up to 1. Anybody still confused about this stuff?
I got this. Frustrating, but I got this.
It's frustrating, I know. But I'll remember, just think about the diagram we put up here, how it works, and I'm gonna go through this little loop. All right. So this is gonna continue to run this, and then go back and do this. Then this is always listening to this. It's gonna go back and do this. Load image, add it to stage, count up. Is this true or false? No. Load it again. It's gonna loop and do it again. Once all this becomes true, then it sets count to 0 and it fades in the first one.
Once all the images are loaded, do you have a function to get rid of the listener?
No, that's a good point. So once this is loaded, I should essentially take this here, right? Drop it here, right? Because they're all loaded, and I should have this say remove.
Or you can use that false true, right?
Yeah, you don't want to back on that. You want to try to move, because then your application is a little bit faster, more efficient. Because if you wait to the garbage collection, you might have like a whole bunch of listeners still there before garbage collection runs. So you don't want to, that's just a nice also backup in case you forget one. Then, it's I should be using it more consistent. I should always have my false 0 true. That's a O, not a 0. All right, so it's count to 0. Got the first one, removed the listener, cleaned up our stuff cells, and that's it. It's all the images are loaded. Everything is ready to roll. You good, Izzy?
Easy looks to
Follow.
start.
You following me? Okay, cool. All right. So we got through this section here in the main class.
Wow.
All right. The next thing that I do after all that's done, all right, is I have a function called set text. And remember, I'm calling everything a function so it's easier for you guys to understand. But when you're working with classes, they're called methods. All right, just remember that. So if you hear functions or if you hear methods when you're studying or learning something, remember that a method is a function. A function is a method. It's just when you're working with classes, it's called methods. When you're doing procedural programming, they're called functions. Or when you're working inside the IDE, when they're not in classes, they're called functions. But essentially, they're the same thing. So I have a function called set text. I'm using the variable count, and I'm adding 1 to it, right? Let's go to the set text function. The set text function says I have a text field on my stage already, and it has an instance name of text. Got it? No surprise there. I'm setting its text property, right, to become whatever I'm sending it. Now, what am I sending it? Let's collapse this guy here so we can, okay. It's sending count. What's count at this point in time? 0, right? And it adds 1 to it, right? So instead of, it's gonna take 0 plus 1, it's gonna make it 1, right? That's what I'm passing to it. So what's happening is, because our array starts at 0, I don't want it to say 0 of 5 or whatever. I want it to be like human readable numbers, right? So what I did is I made the text become C, right, which is what I passed it. At that point, it's becoming 1, because I took count, added 1 to it, I passed it, so that's what it becomes. And then I concatenated the word of, and then total images. Remember, we already have total images stored. We've already gotten that up here. All right, we went to our XML, we got the length of the children, so we already have that there. So this is going to give me, in this case, the first time it runs, 1 of whatever the amount is. Any day now.
Anytime.
Okay, so that's what that does. 1 of 6. So that's C of, and then total images. Good?
Yeah.
All right.
You could also do like the image name, right? If you wanted to.
Yes. If you had that kind of stuff, you can definitely do the image name.
It could read the XML.
Yes, and give it an image name. Absolutely. All right. That's simple enough, right? That one's no surprise. Okay, cool. This is the image container that I had created. Okay. The next thing is I put the nav buttons, right? The navigational buttons, the previous and next buttons. This is something that we haven't looked at yet, but this is very simple. So I'm going to go into my project. I'm going to my directory called UI, and I'm going to open up the nav buttons class. Now this is something that you guys have been doing over and over and over. The only thing you haven't done is return values from a method, which we just learned. So all I have is a class called nav buttons, and it has the next and the previous buttons that are in my library. Here they are, right? And we've linked them up. All right, so that's all we're doing here. My constructor, let's just make sure that the stage is ready, removes the listener, and then I get the previous and I get the next button. Right? You guys know how to do that part. Now, here's what you don't know. So now I created a function called next and another one called previous button. Right? And it is going to return, it's going to give me back a movie clip. Got it? So how does it know what to get? Because I've already told it, here's my next and here's my previous. So when I call this function, it's going to return the movie clip, next button. Okay? Now this is just an exercise to show you how to do this or show you how to think differently, because if you're using a lot of like arrows, a lot of like little things in an application, then you can store them in a UI like this and just get them anytime you need them. In this case, we're only using them one time. I could have put this in my main class if I wanted to, but I wanted to show you this exercise because this is another nice, neat way to do it. Also, if I change my next and previous button at any point in time, I don't gotta touch the code at all. You know, it'll just work. All right. So here, when I call this here, called next button and previous button, it's gonna return back those objects. We got it, right? Just the same way return back a bitmap. In this case, I'm telling it return back a movie clip. So when I go back to my main, right, I instantiated a class. I added it to the display list. All right? I don't know why I have this commented out. Okay. Then I have my method called setupNav, and that's all it's gonna do. It's gonna say back button, that's a variable that I've created. Go into my nav button class that I've instantiated and get me my previous button. And that's it. And then I'm putting it X and Y properties, putting it on the stage, setting the alpha to 30%, and then add it to this playlist. Why I put it to 30%? Because this is the back button. That lets the user know there's nothing there, right? So when we run this thing, they can't go back, because unlike some of you, I hate rotating galleries, but you know, there it is. That says the only way you can go is forward. Alright, so when I go this way, then this one becomes available, and the other one becomes available. Alright, that's the only reason why I did that, the 30%. Okay, I do the same thing with the next button, set it up, and that's it. So you start seeing what's cool about having, you know, functions return back to you. You can have this whole nice thing set up, and then just tell it, give me this, give me this, give me this, give me this, anytime. Then I'm adding the listeners to the next button and the previous button. Nothing special there. Here's the next page function. And here we're doing again, if count is equal to total images minus 1. We're familiar with that minus 1. We're going to tween light the next button to 30%. So otherwise, if you reach the end, right? Because that's what that one is. And then next button, we take the button mode to false, so it doesn't have the little hand. And then count, we know that, leave it at that point in time, so you to continue to go. And then the else, count up. Here I'm setting the text again, same way. I'm telling it to tween light the next one on the image. The back button to 30%, and the button mode, set it back to true. Any questions? Right, this is stuff that we already done with the previous gallery. So, and the previous page, the same thing in reverse. Or, you know, with minor changes, obviously, but. All right. That's basically the whole thing. That's basically the entire thing. Anything you want me to go over?
Can you go over the return again? I didn't really
Sure.
understand why you had a separate class for it if you're instantiating the buttons on the main.
I'm not instantiating the buttons on the main. You see here, when I call my buttons, so we have our setup nav, right?
Yeah.
When I go here, I'm not instantiating anything.
Oh, okay.
You see? Because remember, every time you say new whatever class, new something, you're putting this into memory, and Flash keep track of it. So I don't want to be instantiating it over and over and over and getting a new one. Every time I want to use that button or that arrow in my application, I don't want to be all the time, you know, saying new arrow, new arrow, new arrow. No, because then I'm piling up. I just want to, you already have it, just give it to me. That's what that is. So I'm not instantiating it here. I'm only instantiating it here. See? You know, because of the new keyword. That's how you know. And this, and the return value, in this case, it's just returning the next button or the previous button in between these two functions, because I have them here. Right? So my constructor ran. Right? If the stage is ready, run the init function, which is going to get them. It's not listened to when it's been added. Right? It's still going to run the init function. Boom. And that's it. See, that's the public functions. These haven't been called. They're just there and ready. Here's why I call it. You know. Now, could I have said nav button, nav.get button? Could I have done this instead of having back x backend? Sure, I could have just done this and added .x, .y, all that. But this is cleaner, much nicer, easier to understand. That's all it is. And at the end of the day, you know, when we start working as the team, we want to make sure that our code is as clean and as understandable as possible. Because if you start changing projects or working on multiple people on one project, then you want to make sure everybody understands what you're talking about. And we should be commenting as you're coding. Don't wait till the end. Don't wait till later on. As you're doing it, comment as you go. Anybody want anything else for me to go over? Return values, how we did this part, this whole image, because I think you guys are a little bit confused with this image loader thing. And remember, this is a really nice way to set up image gallery. It is not the only way to set it up. Could you do it a different way? Yes, but you know, this is a real nice optimized way to set it up. A real nice way to reuse this gallery over and over and over again. You know, I could create a new, you know, Flash document. My interface looks different, and just plop in this code, and it's gonna work. You know, because that's how we built it. And at the end of the day, we want to try to build things as right as possible. You know, remember we have the 80-20 rule that I said in the beginning. 80% of your code should be clean. The other 20% is, oh shit, my deadline's getting near. I just gotta get it done. That would be ideal. You know, you do 80-20. Sometimes it doesn't work that way. Maybe you get 70-30. That's still good. You know, you start dropping below that. That means you didn't really think about the project too much when you started it.
Give enough love.
You know, you didn't give it enough love. You didn't caress it enough.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, as far as like some of these things, we're only gonna get it when we start really messing with it.
Yeah,
When
and
we set our asses down.